live. Oh, here we go. Hello and good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness, what a way to start the podcast. Yes, it is 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Welcome, everybody. It is hot as hell itself, 95 degrees here in New Rochelle, and it is expected to get hotter. I don't know about you fine folks. I hate the summer. I cannot wait for the fall. But listen, we're here. We have some monster-sized topics to get into, ladies and gentlemen, and one of which is going to include the rhetoric from, I use the word loosely, journalist Christopher Dring had set the internet on fire, as he's done before, by claiming that he spoke to somebody within Microsoft, and they told him a whole tale of how Xbox Game Pass isn't profitable because they don't count first party this. And look, folks, I did a post on Twitter responding to this. I will read it verbatim. And I'm going to just say this, Jamie Moran. In the near 8 years of doing content, I have never come across a human being quite like Christopher Dring. He is one of the, there's been a lot, but it does seem like he is hell-bent on letting us know that Game Pass is bad for devs. Game Pass is bad for the industry. Game Pass is bad for consumers. I don't know where he gets this from. I don't understand what the hard-on is for, to be quite honest. Pause. But Jamie Moran, that's not the only story we're going to cover. One of the, I think, the biggest stories of the year is Helldivers 2 coming to Xbox. This follows a trend that started with MLB The Show. We have seen 505 Games publish a game called Death Stranding. You actually have not only beaten it, but you're thinking about playing through it again. That was a Sony-only title. Kojima recently purchased the IP back from Sony, so he makes all of the calls on where the next game goes. We know that Death Stranding 2 came out to very great scores. I don't know how well it did, in regards to sales, but it eventually will land on Xbox. We just don't know specifically when, whether that be a 6-month delay or a year exclusivity pack that might have been signed. But we have a lot to get into because I don't think Helldivers 2 is the only game or the last game coming from PlayStation Studios. As a matter of fact, you saw by the thumbnail, I honestly believe that Nixxes is currently porting Spider-Man. And I know that we've seen Detective Seeds put something out. I think it was either yesterday or very early this morning that, he has a lot of friends. He is connected. I know a lot of people don't like Detective Seeds. That's fine. I personally don't have a problem with him. But he did put a post out there where he said he spoke to somebody that he knows within Nixxes, and they, according to him, are not working on any Xbox ports, only current PC ports. That's what he said. I don't believe that because I think Sony sees the writing on the wall. But Jamie Moran, how are you feeling, brother? I know it's hot as H by where you are in the UK, but we got some fire to talk about today, man. How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here. Look, outside of all the bad stuff that's gone on, it's been a good week to be a consumer. Lots of cool games to play, lots of cool games coming. I'm enjoying the variety in Game Pass at the minute, which is nice. And, as you said, I'm thinking about playing Death Stranding again because that game is freaky. It's weird, but I absolutely loved it. I'm currently playing Final Fantasy 16 at the minute, a game which I can't stop talking about because it's honestly one of the best games of the year.
You know what? Listen, I am so glad that you are finding incredible enjoyment on that game because I know that listen, a lot of people really liked it. Some people didn't like the long cutscenes, whatever. I've seen your videos. It looks amazing. And when it's on sale, like when I bought it for the PlayStation 5, I'll buy it on Xbox. I didn't want to buy it for full bulk because I am up to my eyeballs in a backlog that I can't seem to get to. But I am glad that you are enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't blame people wanting to wait for sales, not because I think it's expensive, but like it's just a great time to be a gamer. There's so many games to play. Like hell, I'm still trying to finish Avowed.
Yeah.
And that came out in February. You know, I've still got Doom the Dark Ages. Like, there's like people's backlogs are ridiculous at the minute. So like, this is why I always tell people to not try and pay attention to the game charts all the time, because there's big games that'll come out and that I've been looking forward to for a while, and I'll just completely ignore for maybe a month or two because I'm not having 30 games going on at once. Yeah, I say that, and I started a new Call of Duty game last night, but still,
I saw that. That's funny.
it is what it is. But hey, it's a good time.
Indeed, it is. Now, folks, obviously, Infinite Number should be here momentarily. When he gets here, we're going to bring him in on the conversation. But, you know, let's open up with the Christopher Dring drama, shenanigans, whatever you want to call it. Yesterday, he put out a post that a lot of the IGN-owned websites ran with. And that was, he was told specifically that Xbox Game Pass is not profitable, right? And all you have to look at is the last quarterly report from Microsoft themselves, right? This is an official report that had services up 8% year over year, which means that's in the positive. It's not in the negative, it's in the positive. And the way that Christopher Dring tried to break it down was doing math magic, Jamie. If you discount what they've spent on first party and you subtract that by what they spent, listen, this is why no one pays attention to him, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to be over the top. When I say he's a journalist, I use it, that particular term, very loosely with him. Anybody can do what he does. What he does is, like we've seen so many people do, blur out something. And he's, his name is well known. Unfortunately, it's well known for rubbish, not so much anything else. But his name is well known. And Jamie, he blurs out something, fans the flame, and then runs away. And then as it's blazing, you have places. And look, I don't really want to go to war with any of the websites. So I'm going to hold myself back of naming the names, because that's not what this show is for. We're here on a daily basis, 5 days a week, to celebrate gaming with this amazing community. Now, this is one of those topics that's going to have some smoke, because unfortunately, he started this fire. Well, we're here. We're here to talk about it. And he made a rebuttal, which someone actually said I think he said he pulled it down. I mean, I just found this, so I don't think so. But he set the internet on fire yesterday by claiming he had information that was given to him directly from Microsoft, where it was explained that they don't count first-party investment costs into what they make from Xbox Game Pass. And I got to tell you, folks, when you start to hear that kind of dissecting, that is someone trying to change the narrative so it suits theirs. That's all this is. So I wake up this morning after several websites, and some of which I'm very disappointed with, one of which I know actual people that own it, and I get the business. I understand that everyone on the internet is jockeying for position to get your click. I understand that. I'm not a boob, ladies and gentlemen. I understand the business. But there have been so many disingenuous takes just on this topic in the last 24 to 48 hours. It's unbelievable. I'd even dare say it's egregious. So this morning, I wake up to, do my thing, and I see I have 9 DMs. I'm like, oh man, what happened? And it's everyone sending me Christopher Dring's rebuttal to his horse shit from yesterday. And it starts out with, okay, I need to correct/clarify something. First, Xbox Game Pass is profitable, even when you factor in the lost sales for first-party teams. Sources who would have known have told me. Jamie, look, I don't want to spend 45 minutes on this topic because I want to get into how I think Sony's third-party future has been revealed, and a lot of the PlayStation loyalists who said that this wasn't going to happen, a lot of the websites who said this would never happen, are about to be wrong again. But I want to get your take on this because, again, we were talking in the green room, and, well, you know, Christopher Dring is who we thought he was, and he does what he does, which is rubbish. Let's get your thoughts on his report on, once again, Game Pass not profitable, and Microsoft, who just did cuts. You would think that if it wasn't profitable, this would be gone like the dinosaurs. Let's get your thoughts, man.
Oh, I've got a lot to unpack here.
Please.
Chris Dring and horseshit are basically a match made in heaven, because this thing happens time and time again, right? And I've had this problem with game journalism for years where, they won't do any investigation work. They'll just, maybe hear something, maybe they'll get a tweet off something, maybe they just like the topic at the moment and they'll want to fan the flames because they'll get people flocking to their website. And they won't actually find out, hey, is this thing true? Because how can you have a source from Microsoft telling you, by the way, none of this, Game Pass isn't profitable, first-party games aren't included, all the costs aren't included, and all that stuff. And then 5 seconds later, oh, by the way, I was proven wrong. So what? So he didn't actually talk to anyone from Microsoft. That's my biggest problem with these people. They make stuff up, right? And yeah, we'll get the obvious out the way first. Again, Microsoft has a tendency to step on rakes, right? They'll have an amazing piece of news, such as a game showcase or a shadow drop at a direct or something like that. They've had a really good year for game releases. If anything, the best year they've ever had for releases. Consistent, high quality, great games. And then 5 seconds later, they'll step on a rake and maybe there's there's layoffs, there's a game cancellation, studios closed or whatever. And people will use that as ammunition against Game Pass. People have had this enthusiasm, over-enthusiasm to try and pull down Game Pass since it's been around. And, it's always started with, hey, is this good for developers? And then when developers start coming out and saying, hey, it actually is good for us. Then when it came out that people were saying, oh, maybe it overshadows other releases. And it turns out it was pushing people to buy more games, right? Because they were saving more money. And now it's, oh, is Game Pass sustainable? And our first-party games included in the cost, right? There's always this reach for Game Pass. Always. And I made this post yesterday, and I think some people kind of missed out on what I meant. But my point is that how can Sony have a bunch of layoffs? How can Embracer have thousands of layoffs, right? And nobody blames Game Pass. But the second Microsoft has layoffs, it's Game Pass all of a sudden. That doesn't make any sense. This happens time and time again. And if Game Pass wasn't sustainable in any way, Microsoft would be the first company to pull the ripcord, right? Windows RT cost Microsoft $1 billion, right? They had warehouses filled with tablets, never got put out, right? There was going to be an Xbox Watch at some point. They thought it wasn't going to be profitable, never came out. The Surface Mini never came out, billions lost, right? Microsoft has it, and even with devices that's already out, look at the Zune, right? The iPod competitor, right? They pulled the ripcord on that. Xbox has been around for 25 years, and time again, people are trying to make it seem like it's the end. They come out with services, which is actually changing the industry, and people want it to be the end because for some reason, gaming is in this weird bubble that people don't want to change, right? We've had multiple different kinds of media change over the years, and nobody bats an eye. iTunes changed the music industry back in the early 2000s, right? And then in the early 2010s, we had things like Spotify and other music streaming services where you can listen to an unlimited amount of music for absolutely free. Nobody bats an eye. You have Netflix change the TV and movie industry. You have Apple TV Plus or whatever you call it. You have Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, right? All these services basically doing the same thing. And you have Microsoft doing something similar with gaming, and it's the end of the world as we know it. Cats and dogs are living together in harmony. It's crazy, right? But for gaming, we're not allowed to have change. We have to have the same business model we've had since the 80s, where you go buy a game, you keep it, or you trade it in, right? Now, you can still buy your games. And by the way, boom, this is what I'm about to say is the most crazy thing about this. You have these journalists that constantly going after the Game Pass all the time, saying, but what if you look games behind Game Pass, which they haven't done for 8 years, by the way. Nobody wants to mention the elephant in the room. Apple Arcade. Apple Arcade locks games behind the subscription service. You can't buy them. You have to subscribe to play the games. But these journalists don't go after Apple Arcade, do they? Why? Because nobody talks about Apple Arcade. Nobody has Apple Arcade. Over 30 plus million people have Xbox Game Pass, and they are constantly tuning into this news because you have these people saying, oh, you know, you've seen in the past few days, cancel Xbox Game Pass. They should end Game Pass. Can you imagine the reaction online if Microsoft came out today and said, hey, guys, we love you, but Xbox Game Pass, it's no longer going to be a thing. And we're going to go back to how we were 8 years ago. Hope you have a good day. That would be the biggest reaction Microsoft has ever had in any way. It would be worse than the 2005, Xbox 360 Red Ring of Death situation. It'd be worse than the Xbox One situation with the announcement. It'd be worse than this past week with the layoffs, right? People don't know what they're talking about, right? But, no, we have to be stuck in the past. We have to have people like Chris Dring not doing their actual job, Mr. Lord Farquaad of the internet and game journalism, right? It's annoying. It's happening it's happening all the time, right? And by the way, Sony's getting away with murder at the minute, right? They don't have any roadmap whatsoever.
Nope.
People have been asking for a proper showcase. It's not happening. They didn't have an E3 showcase or summer showcase. Nobody bats an eye, right? They have Sony cancelled Concord two weeks after it came out. The biggest flop of all time, more so than ET, biggest flop of all time. Nobody bats an eye. Everyone forgets it a week later, right? Marathon was meant to be, and Boom. I was looking forward to Marathon. It gets delayed. We don't know when it's going to come out. We don't know if it'll ever come out because the whole Bungie having issues and stuff. But like, all eyes have to be on Microsoft. And yeah, the layoffs that happened last week were awful. It's always awful when this crap happens. But people act over the top whenever Microsoft does it, right? The truth is, all these layoffs are bad, right? But we can't just look at Game Pass. And you think people like Chris Dring, journalist, would know this, right? So why do people get laid off from Sony or Embracer? Was it Game Pass? Should we blame the Xbox Series S as well while we're at it? It's tiring. It feels like the gaming newscape, mainly because of these bloggers and journalists, like we're in this endless cycle of the same thing over and over and over again because, we have some good news, then something bad happens. We have to blame Game Pass for the Xbox Series S. Then a port comes out that, it's stupid, man. The game industry is messed up. And I've said time and time again, the reason we have problems in the game industry at the minute is two reasons. The cost of games is way too high and game dev time is way too long. You can't have games costing $1, $2, $3, $400 million, taking 5, 6, 7, 8 years to make. And I said this last night on Twitter. You can't have games come out like this anymore. It doesn't make any sense. If you're a Rockstar or maybe CD Projekt Red, then it makes sense. Look at The Witcher 4, right? The Witcher 4 is estimated to cost around $400 million. So that game has to be an instant success out of the gate. No drama, no controversy, nothing behind the scenes, nothing. They have to have a pristine, perfect launch. And if they don't, it'll fail. Then you have something like GTA 6. That's obviously going to be a success, right?
Yeah.
It could be the buggiest game at launch, but it's going to be the biggest game of all time because people are sick of waiting 12 bloody years for a new GTA game, right? They're going to have huge success with that game. and it's going to print money with their microtransactions. But like these other games, it doesn't make any sense. I've talked about Perfect Dark on a weekly basis since it was announced. And if you look at that and thinking, wow, that's all they had to show for 7 years of development, was that game ever really going to recoup its money? Was that game? And I feel awful for saying this, but I'm making sense, right? Right, 7 years to make a reboot of an old IP. I think those days are gone across the entire industry, right? I think that the days of, hey, wouldn't it be cool if Microsoft bring back Jet Force Gemini? Those days are up, right? The AAA industry is it's extremely risk averse because it's extremely expensive. So you have one group of gamers that are only playing free to play games. They'll play Fortnite, Apex, your Warzone, all that type of stuff. And the thought of them purchasing a video game is a weird concept. Hell, even buying a console to them is a weird concept. You play Fortnite on your mobile phone and you're done, right? And then you have the rest of the industry, the core gamers, which I'll call them, where they've been told right now, hey, you have to be charged $80 a video game. And journalists are telling us that we should be fine paying $80 for video games, which is stupid. Games aren't worth $80. And games across the board, even games that might not even do that well, are taking 6 years to develop. The gaming industry, and I've said this before, I think there's going to be a crash happen at some point. I think AA and indie are going to be what people play for like 2 years straight until something happens. Because if you look at movies, I'm sorry I'm rambling, but I have a point to make.
No, please. This is a conversational podcast. I don't care if you take 15 minutes, brother. This is what needs to be said because you're making sense. God forbid someone on the internet makes sense.
Like, if you look at the movie industry, let's look at like things like Jurassic Park back in the 90s, right? These big budget blockbusters that came out in the early 90s sometimes would take 2 to 4 years to make, right? And the development cost of those movies, the production cost, will be around what they are now, right? And what's happened over time? The cost of movies has kind of gone up. However, you can make a big blockbuster movie in about 18 months.
Yes.
CGI is better, technology's evolved. If you look at gaming, technology's evolved. It takes longer to make games. It takes more people to make these games.
Yep.
And if we are looking at a point where if you play a game now that's came out this year, we are not going to see a sequel to that game if it did well for a generation and a half. To me, that is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy, right? Back in the 360, and yeah, I have a lot of nostalgia for that generation, but look in the 360, we had 3 BioShocks, 3 Batman Arkham games, 3 Mass Effects, 3 Dead Space, right? We had multiple Battlefield games that were peak. We had Call of Duty at its peak didn't have microtransactions or battle passes, right? We had unique IPs all the time. We had AAA games that would come out, do well, and not even get a sequel, right? We had 2 Elder Scrolls that generation. We had 4 Gears of War games that generation. Hell, there was 3 God of War games. There was 3 Uncharted games, right? We had consistent sequels because developers knew what they were doing. They weren't concentrating on getting photorealistic graphics out then because they were concentrating on unique art styles. And we had a good time that generation. And look at it now, right? like Indiana Jones, I think that was a 10 out of 10 game. We won't see a sequel to that for maybe, 2031? That's kind of depressing.
I mean, being that they have the assets and they just have to, create a new story or another chapter in his life, maybe it's a little bit less because you got to remember they're building when Indiana Jones comes out, they're building it from scratch, right?
Yeah.
Now they have, obviously there's the new DLC coming out at the end of the year with the Giants, which I can't wait for. Maybe it's 4 years. I don't think it's going to be anything quicker than that. But you're onto something. It's what's interesting, and I do want to just kind of bring this in as for context. Now, before the Christopher Dring story, Jamie, we were another big story of anti-Xbox rhetoric happened, and it came the way of a former developer for Arkane Studios. His name is Rafael Cantino, right? And this is what he said. Now, this blew up on the internet. And, of course, Chris being the I forgot what they call them, the people that show up at messy accident scenes to take pictures, night crawlers or something like that. That's ultimately what he is. Again, folks, if I got the naming wrong, please correct me in the chat. I think they're called night crawlers or something like that, where they show up, there's a horrific accident, and they take pictures and they sell the pictures. Well, that's what ultimately Christopher Dring did with this story, because this story broke first. And Rafael Calentino, which, by the way, was a big part of Arkane. Interestingly enough, though, he left the studio in 2017 for family reasons. So no smoke there. But you left the studio in 2017. Why are you now commenting on the industry? Because I don't even know if he's with a studio right now. I know he was with Arkane. He's no longer with them and hasn't been for years. Well, this is what he had to say, Jamie. I think Game Pass is unsustainable. It's an unsustainable model that has been increasingly damaging to the industry for decades, subsidized by Microsoft's, quote, infinite money. But at some point, reality has to hit. I don't think Game Pass can coexist with other models. They're either kill everyone else or give up. Now, again, he's a human. He's entitled to his human opinion, but I have to push back on it because, the one thing that continuously gets left out of the big conversation, and it's really common knowledge. There was a report from one of the big statistics for gaming sites, where they had deemed that younger people, not old people like us, younger people are spending 30+% less on video games. Now, I'm not an analyst, ladies and gentlemen. I'm in the business, sure, but I'm not an analyst. And you ask yourself, well, what's this unanswerable question? Well, that unanswerable question is real common knowledge. It's called free-to-play model. The free-to-play model has changed everything about spending in gaming, right? The free-to-play model can have someone on any device, whether that be their PC, their tablet, their TV, their phone, or their favorite game console, download the game and play that game with the subset of characters or character models for an infinity amount of time and never have to spend a dime. Now, do people spend on the microtransactions? Sure. But there are kids that don't care. They play Fortnite, they play the same character, and they go. You can blame Fortnite, you can blame Apex Legends, you can blame PUBG or Warzone, and now, Minecraft is another black hole game, right? You can also blame Marvel Rivals that just seems to keep taking up and sucking up the zeitgeist of the community. What shocks me is that somehow Game Pass giving players who may or may not have infinite money like Microsoft the ability to be a part of the gaming conversation at a budgeted price, but yet no one comes for Nintendo who just knocked the door off its effing hinges and said $80 games. And of course, Microsoft follows suit because, well, why not? And I think Microsoft's, point of view is, well, if we say we're going to charge $80, we're going to get people to subscribe to our service. I understand. Do I agree with $80 games? Abso-freaking-lutely not. So the fact that we have, groups of people, groups of websites continuing this hell-bent witch hunt that Xbox Game Pass is somehow to blame for every bad thing in gaming is beyond fathom. I don't even know what else to say. And I'm Bryce. Just so you got here, brother. We'll get to you in a second. But Jamie Moran, I didn't mean to take over your conversation, but I had to add that because again, Christopher Dring's whole write-up, I think, has a lot to do with this original Arkane developer who has not been with the studio for 8 years and is now coming and talking out of turn. That's just my thought on it, but please continue.
Yeah, no, it's all right. As I was saying a minute ago, look at all the sequels we got during the 7th generation. Do you know what that generation, by the way? We had 8 Rockstar games. 8. Yeah, we had 2 Grand Theft Autos that generation, one of which had 2 expansions. What a good generation. But like these people, they don't want to blame the obvious problems. So I mentioned the game budgets and I mentioned the game dev time. But like you said, it's the free-to-play games. That is a huge thing people don't realize. And I think the term is was it black hole games or something like
Yes,
that?
that is the term, because again, you go in and like a black hole, you just stay there forever. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just...
So like when these games came about, like you have people now, you'll hear them say, "Hey, I grew up on Fortnite." Well, one, that makes me sick in my mouth a little bit, but like play some proper games, man. But like people grew up playing these like free to play Fortnite and all this stuff, right? You can play 1,000 hours of Fortnite and not need to pay a single penny, right? Same with Warzone and all this stuff, right? These people buying a console, buying a game to them is an alien concept, right? The 200 core player base, it's not growing, right? By people from Microsoft, EA, I think Sony's mentioned this, right? The core group of gamers, they're not really getting any bigger, right? There's millions of more people almost every year coming into the gaming scene playing these free-to-play games. Look at EA, right? EA is the most unrealistic company on earth. Do you know they came out and said they want the new Battlefield game to have 100 million players? One, that's not going to happen. I love Battlefield, and that's not going to happen. But
yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. But it's good to have goals.
Yeah, but in their lofty their lofty imagination, they think that, hey, we could have this Battlefield Warzone thing. Sorry, Battlefield Battle Royale. That's a mouthful. And have people play this for years and years and years, give it endless content, and people will support it with microtransactions until the day they die. Right? That's what all these companies want. Remember how the multiplayer scene was like before Fortnite came out and we had battle passes? We were paying for map packs and multiplayer games every 3 months. Right? Nobody really batted an eye. And everything changed because of these games. The free-to-play stuff messed up gaming, not Game Pass. And if I hear one more developer, or mainly journalist, tell me that I should be spending £80, that's $96, right, on a video game, I can tell them where to go. Because gaming is too expensive for us at the minute as consumers. They're spending way too much on developing these games. They're not doing anything to try and curb the whole like free-to-play market. They don't want to acknowledge that that's a problem. Because look, I'll say this right now. 20 years from now, when all of us are a lot older, and you have less and less people playing these AAA games, that we all love, they're gonna be making a tiny amount of money compared to what they need. Tiny amount, because the millions of players coming into the industry at the minute, they want their free-to-play games with their skins that they're gonna play till the day they die, right? That's what's gonna happen. So that's why I think Game Pass is actually really good for that as well, because Game Pass, I've seen introduce a lot of people that play free-to-play games into different genres. But hey, that's just my take.
And it's a really solid take. Again, it's interesting because I was looking at the chat, and someone actually, I'm trying to find it real quick. It might have been Jago6, I think. And the conversation was being having is that $80 games are right now, right? That's happening. PlayStation, I would imagine, is going to raise their price to $80. Everyone is going to go up to $80 because, well, that's just the way gaming is. They said something to the effect about, well, watch next year, $100 games. What happens if they go to $100 games? Like, who is going to be able to afford gaming? People do game sharing right now. Umber, you happen to be one of them. You share with your cousin, right? Or your nephew.
My nephew.
Your nephew. And you know something? It's a necessary evil of the industry. And this is what drives me crazy. And I know, first of all, welcome, brother. Thanks so much for joining us. I do want to get your hot take on the former Arkane developer, speaking out of turn, in my opinion. Yeah, he's entitled to his opinion, but you're not in the business. And if he is, then you just don't understand the business, because you are asking people to legitimately spend potentially $80 on a game and play that game for how long? See, that's the difference and the real special part of Xbox Game Pass. You get a plethora of entertainment for one price. And this isn't a new thing. This isn't a, oh my God, I've never seen this before. This has been going on since the first days of Netflix. You pay a price and you have access to all this content. And it has gone on through music, it has gone on through film, through TV, and now games. And the fact that everyone wants to pile on Xbox Game Pass, more specifically Christopher Dring, because like I said, I don't know if you were in the, here, but I think he's a nightcrawler. And what a nightcrawler is someone that shows up to a wreck and there's body pieces all over the place. They take pictures and they sell those pictures. That's what they do. And that's exactly what he did here. This guy from Arkane made this post. It blew up. And all of a sudden, Christopher Dring, out of nowhere, I spoke to somebody in Microsoft, and they told me that if you divide the amount of money spent to advertise versus the 8% loss for game development plus added with this decimal, shut up. Nobody wants to hear that horse shit. What we want to do is play good games. And you're getting a lot of really good games in one location for a price that doesn't even seem feasible, but somehow it is. And you know something? Just because I wanted, and I don't like reading from my phone, folks, but I forgot to send it to myself. Interestingly enough, the last quarter for Microsoft, who we know will cut ties if things aren't making money, they were up year over year 8% in both content and services. Services meaning Xbox Game Pass. And by the way, they saw a 45% year over year increase for Xbox Game Pass on PC. So what are these people talking about? I don't know. Umbra, take it away, my brother.
Yeah, Boom. So what? I'm not sure where we're at right here in the conversation.
Well, we're at the Christopher Dring nonsense, and we're also, we've roped in the former Arkane developer who says that, like many other developers, somehow Xbox Game Pass is bad for the industry. It's bad for devs. It's bad for everyone.
The old unsustainable argument.
Yeah, the unsustainable Xbox Game Pass.
You see my name,
yes,
right?
Yes. Yeah, I saw that. They're very nice. The unsustainable Umbra. I like that.
I mean, that the argument was funny because it was funny he said that. And well, listen, Dring has long been a thorn, I think, in the Xbox gamers side. It's been he's been one of the people why I believe people have started to feel a way about journalists and kind of like giving them the side eye. It's pretty obvious the man is very much a prefers, I would say, very much prefers PlayStation. I don't think it's a mystery, and I'm not even trying to say it like it's a negative, but I think that because of it, and he may not be aware of it, that bias tends to play off. And we always talk about the Xbox tax. This is kind of that in action, right? And it's not to say that he's like, man, let me get them. And it's not for us to try to protect a multi-trillion-dollar company of Microsoft, but it's a matter of what we deem as unfair, right? And we deem as shady. And he comes out and says this and writes this, and because he is who he is, he has a certain amount of respect given to him. His take is going to be taken very seriously by many. Excuse me, I have to stop drinking pop before we start. I just burp up a storm. Anyway, that's the caffeine fix I needed though. But yeah, people will take him serious, and that's when you see these articles and such pop up. I made a tweet about it saying, and I saw yours as well, Boom. Very great tweet.
Thank you.
The damage is kind of done.
Yeah,
like you've done this. You've said this. They've run these articles. People who may not even pay attention anymore have seen this and said, "Oh, look, Microsoft bad," and they'll keep going on with that viewpoint without knowing anything, right? Because that's how it works for a lot of people. They don't really pay attention to that. They catch a quick, catchy, headline, and that's what it is for them. That they don't need, article be damned. So that's happened, and now that he's retracted, he had to retract almost immediately. It was a few hours later.
A few hours afterwards, he put
hours
this
or so?
ginormous retraction about how it's now profitable.
Right. And he's like,
Ridiculous.
oops, my bad. It is sustainable. Like, wait a minute. Now, kudos to him for coming out to to correct it. I'm not going to fault him for that, but I think jumping out of the window saying that immediately without any proof of anything, I feel like it betrays him being a journalist. I think you want to have more information before you start to state things, right? So that's problematic in itself, and it does lead to, I think, a lot of distrust or mistrust in the community for journalists, people like him, and it bleeds off into other journalists who actually are fair and do their due diligence and things like that, right? And will be treated much in the same as he will be because of things he said and how he acted on this in past situations. So that's part of the problem, I would say. So beyond that, Paris says Game Pass is not sustainable. Microsoft is ruining the gaming industry. They got to Paris, y'all. They got to him. They got but yeah, so I think that's that for one. The second was, I believe you said the Rafael, what was his name? Colantonio?
Yes, I have it here. Let me just pull it back up over here. Calentino is
Calentino.
Yeah.
And he was formerly with Arkane, right?
Yeah, he left the studio in 2017.
Okay, so for him, I mean, listen, I don't know. He knows a bit more, obviously, the inside than we do, but I don't think he would know the inner workings of what's profitable for Game Pass for Microsoft. I mean, and the argument that, oh, this is bad for devs, I don't see that, because, I mean, maybe it's bad for some devs. Maybe that could be argued, right? But we've seen devs come out and praise Game Pass continuously. And it's not like they're just being robbed or something, like Microsoft is stealing their intellectual property and putting it on there. They're being paid for that. And there are different tiers of deals made, right? And you don't have to, it's not like once you put the game on Game Pass, nobody can buy it. So I don't understand the argument. It's also not like in most of the cases that when the game is put on Game Pass, it's not elsewhere. It's not like it's not on Steam and PlayStation and sometimes Nintendo. So what is the argument there when you're getting a bag from Microsoft? You're still selling it on Microsoft's their ecosystem and on these other ecosystems. I don't understand how Game Pass is the bad guy. I don't really get that argument. It doesn't make sense to me. And you all were alluding to live service. I've said it before as well.
Yes,
many of us did. I don't want to make it like we just
we're not the first to say it, but it's
right.
You know what? Can I just add some additional context to your
Sure.
point? So this is very interesting. I didn't know this, and it just dawned on me when we were everyone was talking. I said, you know what? And mind you, this is just Steam, right? This is not PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox, but a lot of games that release on Steam also release on these platforms. So I asked the AI a question, and I asked, on average, how many video games are released monthly, right? Because I don't know what that number was. And according to the AI overview of Google, an average, and this is approximate, folks, 200 to 400 new video games are released on Steam monthly, which roughly translates to 10 games per day. Now, again, this is AI answering the question, but when you talk about Game Pass and how it's a detriment to the industry as a whole, how many of those released games are actually on Game Pass? I would say 1%, maybe that 1%. Yes, a lot of games are on Xbox Game Pass, but they're also available to purchase if you want on Game Pass or your favorite other console. So again, just adding context to what you were saying, Umbra, it's hard to understand how the rhetoric of Xbox Game Pass bad, because it's changed how Xbox gamers buy games. Do you know how many games I bought in the last 3 days? Now, they're not $50 and $60 games, but I bought 11. I pre-ordered 7.
Yeah, I bought about 12 or so games myself the past week. And listen, the whole thought of you have people having to be shamed and like, oh, you have to buy this. I don't have to do a thing.
Yeah.
If Game Pass goes under tomorrow, that is not on me. Microsoft is a $3.7 trillion company. I do not feel bad about their like the whole act that we got to care about the sales. I don't have to care about their sales.
No, you do not.
How many times do I have to tell people I'm arguing always from the point of us as consumers, never for them as business. I don't care about their business. You know what I mean? It's only so far as them continuing on so I can get Game Pass. That's about it. and their IP, because I do love their IP. But other than that, it's not like I'm like, man, sure wish Microsoft got all their money. I don't care about them getting money. You know what I mean? That's one. But, the thing is they are getting money. And so the act of arguing like Game Pass is stifling that fully, at least, is silly. And you can argue maybe it's stopping some of the sales of first party. You can argue that, right? Sure. But that's why they also started to, subsidize that by putting it on other platforms. So that's helped them. Now they got the $80 thing going, and it's not even so much as to charge, $80 for the game so much as to push people to Game Pass.
Yes, right? Hurting people to Game Pass. Where why spend $80 on one game when you can spend $240 for the year? And of course, you've heard people say, well, maybe they won't play all those games, and that's true. But if you buy 3 games at $80, Umbra, there's your $240 to what is going to equate to 12 first-party games by end of year on Xbox alone.
It's been a phenomenal year for them. Let's just be clear. But even beyond that, like going even beyond that, we the focus is Game Pass is bad, right?
Yes,
and somehow it's hurting the game industry. Well, you all alluded to the live service situation, and I don't care for live service games much, and I've said this before already too. And like I said, we're not unique in this, but we're absolutely correct in this. And that if you're looking at anything to point a finger at, as far as, oh, this is actually taking away from other games, it would definitely be the black hole games. They did a Circana review of this, right? A data.
Yes,
review.
They did. Circana, correct.
In January of this year alone, over 40% of the playtime on PlayStation and Xbox for gamers was spent on just 10 live service games. They didn't even touch other games. Just 10 live service across both. 70% of active players on these consoles, which is the casuals, right? Because most of them not coming to play games like we are. They're sticking right to those types of games. 70% of those have touched or played at least 10 of those live service games. So like the idea of robbing of Game Pass, robbing people of playing these other games or buying these other games, it's not really the problem. If anything, Microsoft is enriching them, because not only do they get promoted so people can buy it, because there are plenty of us who play the game and say, let me buy this. There are plenty of us who, it's plenty of us who will get it later, right? For whatever, because you get a discount through Game Pass too for the game. There's plenty of money to be had by putting it on Game Pass, which is why you see the retention of these games on there and them returning to Game Pass. Again, it's not like they're not being paid. It's the whole idea or notion that they're being robbed somehow. I don't understand.
In other words, hashtag save the devs.
Yeah, and now, for instance, somebody will argue, well, you would never see a Grand Theft Auto. Well, sure, because it's Grand Theft Auto. Let's be clear. If Microsoft wanted Grand Theft Auto on Game Pass, they can absolutely get Grand Theft Auto on Game Pass. They would just have to pay a pretty penny for it, and Rockstar would acquiesce. Now that would be in the billion range, but they could absolutely do that, right? Somebody argued that the other day. We're mentioning Baldur's Gate 3. Well, they didn't put it on there because they saw whatever. Yeah, and it worked out for them. But let's be clear. If they wanted Baldur's Gate 3 on there, day and dates, they could have given them enough of a bag. The whole notion and the idea that they can't pay them for that to get them on there, they absolutely can. They got the money. So that's one. Two, there was a lot of, I saw another thing too, where there was a lot of, because of the sustainability argument, was that, what's centered around it is how the financials work for them, as the game dev costs, which they erroneously caught, chalked up into Game Pass, right? So I saw a lot of that too, and I think that's where it keeps coming from. And I don't understand the whole notion again. I know that this is a long past time of what fanboys do, because I don't really consider that the gamer part of portion of things. When people like, let me finance and let me or at least hawk the financials of the game sales and the console sales. It's such an old traditional argument in gaming that it's so I've never liked it. I actually like, I always kind of like drift off when it comes into that. It's like that I don't care about that, and it's something that has always been used for console warring. Let's just be real, and that's the only reason why people still care about it like that. They don't, you're not getting anything out of it to do all of that, right? Other than to be like, well, see, PlayStation is selling better, or Xbox is doing this better, right? Typically, it's going to be PlayStation, because that's the hooligans were continuously going on about, and because they are the ones who, if let's just be real, they were the ones who were always hyper fixated on that and pointing out game console sales and such like that, or game sales. It's always been them. As long as I've been playing games, it's always been them. So the whole idea of that has always been anti-gamer for me, because there's no reason for us to be involved in that conversation aside from just general wisdom and knowledge of the situation. Other than that, like arguing and posting it up all day, it's tiresome and it's tired. It's like, get out of that, man. Like, go play a game. We got so many right now to play. But again, all of that aside, I don't concern myself over the notion of Game Pass doing well for devs. I've seen enough of them say it does. Maybe for some, could it be argued it didn't benefit them enough? Maybe. I don't know. But I've seen enough say it does. I have seen yet to see anything that shows that they have not been sustainable. They said they were. They said it in a court, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I'll take their word for it. I don't care enough to be like, nope.
Well, they have to report every quarter to investors, and they can't illegally lie about being profitable or not.
That too. And I just don't see the need to like, let me go over this with a fine tooth comb and then find. I don't care if it's not profitable for them. I see no reason why Microsoft, who people are like, Paris said it in the chat, really, and it's a great point. And I've seen other people say it. If it was so unsustainable, why would Satya, who's been chopping off everything,
I literally said that.
This going? Yeah, it doesn't add up, right? So I think that's all the answer you kind of need there. But kudos again to Dring, who had his one eye on the sparrow and one on the prize, and got things correct and stepped out there and said, and hey, it was sustainable. My bad, basically, and corrected the misstatement. Problem is, again, I would hope that more articles come out that points out his misspoken, I guess, or miswritten tweets versus ignoring that and allowing that to fester.
And he had no choice but to do a rebuttal. But you know what's interesting, Umbra? This is not the first rebuttal. Like he sets this. Like, he lights the blaze and then runs. And then when the blaze becomes uncontrollable, he shows up, to rebuttal. He's done this multiple times. And again, you ask why. Is he just a troll? No, I don't think that's what it is. Obviously, I understand the business. I said that to open up the show. There is video game journalism is a business. All right. Everyone's trying to jockey for your click. Unfortunately, a good portion of the art about the websites that did run with this after Christopher Dring, they're all under the umbrella of IGN, suspiciously enough, which is odd. I mean, whether or not that has something to do with it, I don't know. But we understand that this is a business. They're trying to get your click, and they will use whatever ugly tactics to get it. It's very unfortunate, but it is what it is. And again, I'm not throwing the guy under the bus. We are literally having a conversation on something that I believe needed to be discussed. but I don't want to spend, any more longer than we're on it. Again, anybody has any, last words on it? We do got to get into the big change coming to PlayStation, and it's gonna change. It's gonna change in a way where we continuously see the goalpost move of what Sony is going to do next. Sony is no different than Microsoft or Nintendo. They have an older way of thinking, yes, but they are a business that's in it to make money, and they're not here to be your friend. None of these corporations are.
Can I ask you, Boom and Jamie, how long now that we're in the 9th gen, about to head to the 10th?
Yes.
How long has Microsoft been in gaming, years wise?
In gaming since technically 2001 with the OG Xbox. But Microsoft
25 years basically.
Yeah,
right?
25 years next year. But again, if it's Xbox, it's 25 years. If it's Microsoft, well,
it's about 30 or something with Flight Simulator and
we go back to the MSX and everything.
Yeah.
Let's say with the Xbox itself, about 25.
Right? 25 years next year. Yeah.
How long have we been hearing Xbox is dead? This won't work.
Dude, it's
like 25 years.
Have we not been hearing that for about 25 years now?
Probably, yes. Yeah, I would say so.
This is the longest death crawl or rattle
death
I've
march,
ever seen.
if you will.
Yeah.
Do you know what's crazy, right?
Xbox the unkillable.
The worst thing that's technically ever happened to Microsoft, like Xbox, is that the 360 had a 50% failure rate and they're still here.
And they're still here. Yeah.
Crazy.
You know what? It's
Nino said, does the timeline reset each time they die?
It's pretty crazy. Again, if you combine all of the horror greats from the 80s, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, they got nothing on how many times Xbox has been dead. It's just crazy. But
I swear.
Obviously, gentlemen, I want to catch up on super chats, and we're going to get into the big topic of the show, because this one I think is it's definitely one of the bigger stories of the year, where I talked about it. I was shunned. I had podcasts made of me. I've been on people's thumbnails talking about Helldivers 2. And listen, I don't need the flowers, folks. I knew this was happening, and I didn't need my source to tell me. It's just money. And I'll break down why it's just money and why this is going to balloon into the walls of exclusivity, folks. If you think it started and ended with Xbox, you are wrong. You are wrong. I'm going to tell you why you're wrong in a second, but let me just catch up on super chats, gentlemen. Shout out to Paris Lily, who is closing in on 30,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. That is epic, brother. I couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Hopefully you do get the 30. Want to see you get to 50. We'd love to see you get to 100 so you can get that plaque. But congratulations.
I'll only congratulate him if he has me on the show, and just as a voice, a disembodied voice.
Well, I mean,
you know,
maybe that will happen. We will certainly see. 1,013 people in the chat watching across X, YouTube, and of course our one Twitch viewer. Thank you, Twitch viewer. And that's a lot of people, folks. Again, I remember we used to have 25 people in the chat, and I was excited. And I know that a lot of people are watching on X. That is awesome. If you are not already subscribed and you are enjoying the conversation, you know what? Mrs. Boom and I would love to hit that next covenant number of 17,000 subscribers. And you fine folks can help us get there by subscribing to the YouTube channel. But the first member chat of the day comes the way of Julia, who has been a channel member for 46 months. That is insane. And thank you so much for the support. They go on to say, I'm looking forward to Donkey Kong Bonanza next week. Yes, I bought a copy for me and for Tyler, and I got us the amiibo as well because I love amiibos. Those are freaking awesome. Bounty in the chat drops has been a channel member.
I got to get that as well, by the way, Bonanza.
Dude, it looks really good. I've actually I've talked to people that have played it behind the scenes, and it's by the same team. A lot of people don't know this, that made Mario Odyssey. Same exact team. I think this is going to be a big winner for them. I think this is going to be, I'm so excited for this game. I know it's, thankfully it's not $80, it's $70, but I'm still excited nonetheless. Bounty in the chat has been a channel member for nearly 50 months. That is insane. He says, Wagwan Boom.
There's that patois boom I just heard.
Yeah.
Say it again, boom. Let's hear that again.
Wagwan, boom.
Wagwan.
There you
Wagwan
go.
bounty.
There you go.
You got to put in that little Jamaican twang to it, boom.
You know what? I don't know if I can get that right, but I will certainly give it the college effort for sure. He goes on to say they're just mad about Game Pass because it's a good idea and Xbox is doing it. If Sony was doing it, it wouldn't have been this conversation. I mean, that's a great point. I really think that if it's, again, it goes back to the simplicity of the whole thing. Xbox bad, PlayStation good. I know it's more than that, but ultimately that's what it comes down to when you tear away all the horse shit. Freddie Fox, thanks so much for being here, brother. He drops a very generous $5 super chat. Goes on to say, boom, who the H does Destin think he is to demand Microsoft make a statement about Xbox Game Pass's profitability? They don't owe us, well, you know what. Who's asking Sony about PlayStation Plus or Play? Yeah. I mean, Freddie, it's a great question. I mean, listen, I like Destin a lot. I didn't see that tweet. I didn't know he actually demanded anything. I mean, look, he's been in his feelings the last couple of days with Microsoft. He's been putting out some pretty intense posts. Again, it's his opinion. I don't think he's a monster or anything, but I don't think Xbox or Microsoft owes us anything. But the quarterly numbers are out there. Like their last quarterly financials are public. I literally just read a piece of it. I just before the show went live, I asked Google AI, and I got the whole listing of everything. I could have spent 15 minutes reading it. I'm not going to do that. I know what their financials are. I know that they're profitable, but I don't give a shit. I don't care if they're profitable. I care about how many games are coming into the service that I play. That's all I care about, and that they have not raised the price of Game Pass at this point. That's another reason. That's something else I care about.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's about it. I'm with you there. To Destin though, I still like Destin. I don't agree Destin's with everything he speaks on, but I don't think he's a bad dude.
No, I don't think it's, people try to paint this guy as some sort of a monster. He's not. He's a journalist. He's out on his own. He took a real big risk leaving IGN, and he's got to put posts out. He's got to make videos. You may not agree with the videos. That's fine. But that doesn't make him a monster. I will say that. Day Reezy, salute to you, kind sir. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the very generous $2 super chat. He says also Nintendo's lawsuit for bricking switches. Boom. Yeah, I mean, that's happening in Brazil. I don't know if the lawsuit has extended outside of Brazil, but they have this brick your console at will. And I don't know so much about that. These consoles are expensive. And if accidentally they brick your shit, then what do you do? Because good luck getting in touch with Nintendo to unbrick it. I don't know. I think they're in for some heavy legal battle, in my opinion. Our generous friend, Will the Broke Boy Insider, of course, goes by Do UK Now. The Broke Boy Insider drops a very generous $10 super chat. Will, great to see you here, brother. He says, Dring has this twice in 2 months. He had an issue with clarification for when he said devs were questioning why do they support Xbox if they're putting their games on PlayStation back in May. Yeah, like I said, this is not the first rebuttal from Christopher Dring. It's a consistent thing with him. He sets the blaze, runs away, and then when it's too much or too hot for him, he comes back and adds a rebuttal. You know what? Fine, whatever. But no one should take that guy serious. He just should not be taken serious. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just think that he plays into that, and then
he knows what he's doing. Yeah,
he knows.
What do you mean? I said this. He actually did wrote an article about how Xbox is. Somebody called him out. I don't remember who it was or what exactly the article was. He said something to the effect that Xbox is dead. And then he was out there saying that it's not. And people were like, whoa, didn't you just say? Oh, I didn't say that. And they quoted his article. Like, yeah, you just said this, dude.
This
like,
you?
Yeah, exactly. Is this you?
Oh, by the way, Paris thanks you. He says, where is it? He said, thanks, Boom. And Umbra, that has never happening. Acting like I forgot you mocked me the other day. I don't know what you mean, Paris. I don't recall.
Are you pulling a Christopher Dring? What? What did I say?
What did I do? I don't. You know.
No problem, Paris. Listen, brother, love to see the success, man. Again, we're not haters here. We are congratulators, and love to
Absolutely.
see the success, man. It's the work is there. You put in the work. Why not? You should get
Yeah.
the accolades for sure. 30 Below drops a very generous $5 super chat. It goes, between Game Pass and the Series S, I don't think we'll make it out of the current generation alive. That's the quote of the year. I love it. 30 Below. Thanks so much for the generosity, but thank you for the hearty laugh. That is the quote of the year, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to read it again. It's so good. Between Game Pass and the Series S, I don't think we'll make it out of this current generation alive. You're not wrong, sir. We also have Justin in the chat. Justin drops a very generous $5 super chat. He says, Game Pass is bad for gaming, ? Where was this energy back in the day for Blockbuster, Gamefly, used games? The freaking library rents games for free. I mean, there you go. I mean, it's again, it's interesting. You always wonder if a Christopher Dring or a VGT Gaming or a few of these other websites, Game Rant, do the people writing these articles, do they have Spotify? Do they have Netflix? Do they have, name the one of the thousands, WB? Do they have, Fox? Do they have Peacock? Whatever, where they watch their films and TVs?
Surely not.
I mean, obviously they must have some of these services. So how is it that there's this conundrum about Game Pass? Oh, I don't understand it. What about Spotify? You pay a price. You could have unlimited use of movies. I mean, of music. Does anyone cry that Jay-Z is not adding more money to his vault? No.
Yeah, that's a good point. It always comes back to that. Like all these other services they use, they can justify all of those, but Game Pass somehow is just like, it doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense for gaming, and it's not really great for consumers. But devs are suffering.
All right.
Yeah, you saw my numbers, 200 to 400 games per month. Try being a developer battling that, right? And Game Pass is actually an advantage for developers, and here's why. How many podcasts have you been on where we talked about the next round of games in Game Pass? Are they getting any play anywhere else? No. Are they paying Sony's $10,000 to be put front and center at the store? Because they're not paying $10,000 to Microsoft to be in Game Pass. Microsoft's paying them to be in Game Pass, and they get the accolades of being on the front page of the advertisement that says these 8 games are in Game Pass. And it might be a game made by one person that if it went onto Steam, nobody would ever see, nobody would ever buy. It's crazy. And again, that's information that's readily available. It's like I'm saying it's an epiphany of sorts. Jay Rambert in the chat has been a channel member for 8 months, goes on to say, until games media is reined in and start actually talking about video games, it's always going to be one-sided. I mean, look, they are who we thought they were. If you see what made me become a content creator was how disingenuous I thought the media was going towards Xbox. It's my favorite brand. Everybody knows that. No big surprise there. But I wanted to talk about it, and thankfully, somehow or another, people bought into what we were selling. And well, we have an audience now where we have 1,042 people watching a live show that I do 5 days a week. It's the greatest thing that could have ever happened to me as a gamer / content creator. I take nothing for granted. I look at this as an unbelievable thing, and I got I got disenchanted with games media, and they continue to do what they do. So this is why I'm going to continue to do what I do and speak out against them when they talk this nonsense.
There you go. I would ask, by the way, I would wonder rather if maybe they do a lot of this, because a lot of people complain about clickbait.
Yes.
As terrible as it can be, we know that it works. And I feel like maybe sometimes they have to, they think they have to justify these types of things and hit pieces or whatever, or or I guess controversial takes to make the ends meet. I feel like at times. Do you think that might be the case?
Yeah. I agree. I definitely think that they look at this as a business, and they are going to do these disingenuous takes because they can simply just do a rebuttal. Well, I was wrong about that, and just post it, and people have already clicked it. They've already made their money.
I used to have this theory, and I actually still kind of have it, that game news used to be news. Hey, this new game or this upcoming game has this really cool feature. Maybe Borderlands 4 has a new way of sharing loot. That would be news, right? But I've noticed over the past maybe like 5, 6, 7 years. Let's just go with 7 years. Game news isn't news anymore. It's just leaks, rumors, and kind of like repeating the same negative news topic over and over again. Like I don't like to use this all the time, but I will. Like IGN, like if they post a negative news story, even if it's wrong, they won't retract this because it still makes money.
They never do.
So they might post a reply saying, "Hey, this is an update," or they'll post an update in the article itself, which you have to click on, right? Game journalism. It's one of the reasons why I got into Xbox content creation. It's because content creation around gaming. I didn't like the state of the industry.
Yep.
Right. I don't like how gaming's covered, and it's all negative. It's all forced, and it's not news anymore. It's not exciting, right? We've just had the biggest summer showcase basically since the pandemic happened, right? Over 100 new games announced for Xbox alone, and what's people talking about? Game Pass sustainability. Right? Mm-hmm. It's all about negative stuff. Nobody's talking about, hey, what's this new cool game coming out? Does this game have a season pass? Is it going to have expansions? What's the gameplay like for this new game that's just been announced? None of that matters. It's just forced negativity, over the top, and it's all pushed. And the thing is, negativity gets clicks. A negative video, a negative article will always get more clicks than a positive video or article.
That's so sad. It's so sad. You're so right about that, Jamie. I've said this before, and I'll see a lot of these grifters, or you'll see people who do nothing but spread FUD with their podcasts or whatever. This is all negative, specifically anti-Xbox. They have possibly more subscribers than you, Boom, who doesn't focus on that. Will be fair no matter what platform it is, even if you prefer Xbox, and you will get less people to subscribe to you. You might not be the best meter to use, but because you're getting up there, you should have more, obviously, in my view.
Thank you. That's
but
very kind of you to say.
Of course, absolutely. And I mean that. But it's you'll have yourself or people I don't know, Kay Asante and Everborn.
Yep.
And and you'll have these, I don't want to call them out of their names, but you have these drifter types and the types that just focus on negativity.
Talking about. Everybody
and they'll have hundreds and thousands of more subscribers and a whole bunch of more people watching. It's what's wrong with y'all? For me, I feel did I get into gaming all these years? I've been playing all my life, just about. I didn't get into that for this type of stuff. It's to me, it's akin to talking about game sales and console sales, aside from just acknowledging what it was. If I'm going to focus on that to try to be a deterrent or tear down another platform, I find no joy in that. I am a gamer. What in the world would I want to be negative about gaming for? It's one of my favorite hobbies in the world. I don't get that. I really don't.
It's disheartening. Look, I put it this way. I know that there are other ways to go about being a content creator. Maybe it's play days with the community. Maybe it's more video content rather than live content. There are different avenues to go. This is what I am. This is who I am. I like the live content because I love the pressure of having to deliver. That to me is why I do what I do. And that's why, you've asked it numerous times, man, how do you figure this out? Because I could do this all day long. Honestly, I absolutely feel so blessed to be sitting here and talking about a industry and a hobby that I have such elation for, that I've been doing since I've been a gamer since 1978, ladies and gentlemen. I've been around. I'm long in the tooth, as the kids like to say, and somehow I'm still as excited as I was when I first put in my first only 2600 cartridge, which I think it was Combat back in the days, and I play with my pops, as I am to play something new that lands on Game Pass or go buy something for PlayStation or Nintendo Switch. I still have that elation, and that's why I do what I do, because I love talking about games. But gentlemen, speaking of talking about games, we got to get into the big topic of the show. Obviously, you saw by the thumbnail that it is Spider-Man potentially, releasing on Xbox. And, there's been some pushback. It hasn't happened yet, but last week, gentlemen, to everyone's shocking, I guess everyone was just so shocked they never saw this coming, even though I was told that it was happening, was Helldivers 2 is officially announced for Xbox, releasing on the same day as Gears of War. And why that's such a wonderful story is Gears of War is landing on PlayStation for the first time, and Helldivers 2, a PlayStation exclusive, landing on Xbox for the first time. Both on the same day. August 26th is going to be one heck of a day for gamers. And whether you play Helldivers, whether you play Gears of War, whether you play both, you will officially have won as a gamer. Because, again, PlayStation is getting a game that they've never had before. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to like that game because it is in line with what, a lot of PlayStation fans enjoy. And that's that single-player, story-driven, adult-themed narrative type of game. That's everything that Gears of War is. It's the original. It's been remade from the ground up. It looks gorgeous. It's going to run great. And it has all the multiplayer. So if you are a multiplayer guy or gal on PlayStation, have at it. Well, Helldivers 2, I think, when you look back at where we've gotten to now, this all started with MLB The Show. Now, MLB The Show was an exclusive baseball game that did very well for Sony for many, many years, right? Eventually, what started to happen is the sales did not equate the amount of money that was being spent via the licensing. And at some point, MLB was like, listen, either you put this on other places or we're going to pull the license. And Sony said, well, we like money. We're going to make this. And they released it on Switch. They released it on Xbox. And they released, I don't know if it's gone to PC or not. I don't actually know. But I know that it's on the 3 major platforms. And
which game was this, Boom?
MLB The Show.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if it's on a PC. Please correct me, folks, if you can shout you out in the chat. I don't know if it's on PC. I don't play on PC, so I wouldn't know. But
yeah, that's the only one. I think that's one of the rare ones that's not actually.
That's not on there. So there you go. Yeah. But ultimately, what we were told by the games media and by PlayStation loyalists and fans, well, it doesn't really count because MLB is publishing on Xbox. That's what we were told. Okay, I could see that argument. I'm not going to fight you on it. So then what happened last year, one of Jamie's favorite games was Death Stranding 1. Death Stranding 1 came out and launched on Xbox. To a lot of people's shock, right? But that was not published by Sony Studios or PlayStation Studios. It was published on Xbox by 505 Games, who, by the way, published that on PC. So we were told, well, that doesn't really count, Boom, because PlayStation Studios did not publish it, so it doesn't count. Oh, okay, that's fine. And then last week, after all the bad news happened on Wednesday, Thursday morning, we wake up to find out that Helldivers 2 is not only coming to Xbox, was not only developed by Nixxes, who is a Sony-owned first-party studio, but it's being published by PlayStation Studios. Well, folks, there it is. There is your third-party PlayStation. Now, is this a shock? Well, for some fanboys and console warriors, I suppose it might be. But for everybody else, I don't think so. Why? Well, because Sony's a corporation. They like money. And they want to continue to make money. And you know who's not making them money? their fans. Yeah, the casuals will buy a game like MLB The Show, but they're the loudest members of the games community. Jim Ryan told you before he was fired that you guys aren't enough, and you're not. And you know, Jamie, you made mention of something earlier that I just want to kind of just harken back to. You talked about blockbuster films versus blockbuster games. I mentioned this last week, and I can pull it up, folks, but it's you can go search it for yourself. Spider-Man: No Way Home, incredible film, right? You had all three Spider-Men from different universes with Doctor Strange and basically the Sinister Six. It was freaking amazing. I've seen that film 25 times.
It's kind of funny because you say that because so many people, after Endgame MCU, I'm like, you all didn't see the Spider-Man movie? That was excellent.
That is phenomenal film. Guess what? That film cost $200 million to make.
I'm surprised it only cost that much.
Right. So that's a lot of money. Spider-Man 2, which was outsold by Helldivers 2, P.S. by the way, cost $315 million to make. $115 million more than Spider-Man: No Way Home. Film versus video game. That's a reality, folks. So this is why Sony, as a corporation, is not going to start and stop with Helldivers. Now, what I'm hearing, and this is the pushback we get on this, is, well, it's a service game, Boom, so it makes sense. Oh, wait a second. It makes sense now? So you don't think something like Spider-Man is going to come over? Because, by the way, if you didn't know, last year, Marvel upped the ante of what PlayStation has to pay them. They were paying 25% of every game sold went to Disney. Well, now that's been boosted up to 35% as of last year. 35% of every Spider-Man game sold goes to Marvel. At what point does somebody, and mind you, Sony is a public traded company, which means that the people that invest in that business are going to look at, say, wait a second. Xbox has 5 of the 10 slots in our top 10 most paid games, and we are doing what? Spider-Man 2018 is literally sitting on a digital shelf doing nothing. As a matter of fact, I don't even know, because they pulled it once before, if it's in PlayStation Plus. Can anybody in the chat tell me if they put it back in there? Because they pulled it out right before Spider-Man 2 was released. So people could go buy Spider-Man 2018 and the Miles Morales 2-pack. That's what they did. You know why? Because they like money. They're a corporation. They're not your friends. They want their money. So, of course, this long-winded conversation, I'm going to go right back to Jamie Moran. Jamie, I think Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales is going to be a $70 2-pack that is going to be developed by Nixxes. I don't know when that's going to happen, but that is going to happen because Marvel wants to make money. Sony wants to make money. And I think that Helldivers 2 is going to sell incredibly well on PlayStation. The minute it was up for pre-order, I bought the $60 edition without even thinking twice. And I doubled it because I bought the $60 edition originally on the PlayStation 5. And I was happy to give them my money because that's a really great game. I just prefer the Xbox controller over the DualSense.
I bet it plays phenomenally on a Xbox controller. By the way,
I can't wait! And of course, I got I got an Elite. I got several Elites, and that half pull trigger. That's life right there.
Elite, I have to say, Elite is just man.
Yeah, it's good. I cannot wait to play it. I'm very excited for the 26. I'm going to be playing both games. Jamie Rand, do you think Spider-Man is next? And more importantly, do you think, because there was a report that there's a rumor, again, it's folks, take it with a huge grain of salt, that something like the Last of Us 1 remake and even the Uncharted trilogy could find their way to Xbox. If that happens, hell has frozen over and the internet will officially go down permanently. Let's get your thoughts, man.
If we go back to like 2023, before any of the multi-platform stuff happened, and I'm not saying I'm like some Nostradamus or Mystic Meg or anything like that, right? I was saying on my podcast that I think that Sea of Thieves is going to go to the platforms, not based on any rumor, not based on hate or anything, because I 1000% believe that most games have a max ceiling of fans they can get on a console, right? So like Sea of Thieves, like who was really buying a new console, a new Xbox for Sea of Thieves in 2023? Like, if you want to play it by then on Xbox, you probably would have had an Xbox. So like them putting that on other platforms, I thought was an inevitability, right? And then with Death Stranding last year, and even though Kojima owns the rights to Death Stranding, that was number one in a lot of countries on Xbox. It clearly did well. A game that's called a FedEx simulator, right? I absolutely loved it, but I think it just makes sense. Like on one end of the spectrum, you can say, well, don't these consoles need exclusives to sell that platform? But if you look at the cost of these games now, and you look at these games that, like, look, Spider-Man has just been sitting basically on a server for years, right? If you don't own a PlayStation already to play Spider-Man, were you really ever going to buy a PlayStation to play Spider-Man? Probably not.
No.
But I just saw this comment in chat a minute ago, and I can use this as ammo because it's so good. Someone said, like, well, what about the licensing fee? Would it even be worth to bring it to Xbox? We don't have an open world Spider game on Xbox. That's one that it would do well out of the gate just based on that, right? There aren't many open world superhero games in general, so like it would do well. Like I think maybe Sony hit the max ceiling with a bunch of these games. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, right? Does the multi-platform thing scare people? Yeah, but at the end of the day, right, like Gears of War Ultimate Edition came out in 2015, right? The people that are gloating that they're going to get to play Reloaded on PlayStation this year, they're gloating that they're going to play a 10-year-old remake of a 19-year-old game, right? And if people are really angry about that, why? You've already played it. You played it 10 years ago, right? This version is the same game. It's just 4K 60. That's it. Nothing different.
Yep.
So, like, with Spider-Man, would anyone really care? Like, on the negative spectrum, like, unless you're, like, a deranged fanboy and you have, like, Spider-Man as your profile picture and you're obsessed with Spider-Man for some reason, then I don't understand. Like, it would do well, right? Things like, a Days Gone, right? Days Gone came out in, 2019? It sold over 10 million copies. Sony decided to not make a sequel because it didn't do well when it comes to Metacritic scores, which, to me, is mind-blowing. Like, why not put that on Xbox? Like, I think unless you're Nintendo, I think that the days are kind of numbered when it comes to, everything being exclusive forever. There's no reason for it to be, right? Should a game that came, let's use Bloodborne. Bloodborne is a great example. People have been wanting a PC version of Bloodborne for years, right? If they release a PC version of Bloodborne, let's say tomorrow, would anyone really be angry on PlayStation? Because you've had, 12 years to play the bloody thing? Like,
dude, they've been waiting for a remake on that game. Like, there's like a cult following for that to happen.
Yeah, and I think they should do it. But my point is that, like, these games are just sitting on servers not making money, right? Unless you're a Grand Theft Auto that came out in 2013 and you're just selling copies every single day, then why not just put these games on other platforms? Can you, like, look at Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty hasn't been on the Switch or Nintendo platform since, I think it was Call of Duty Ghosts on the Wii U, right?
Yeah, that was the last one. It's been a minute. Yeah.
They haven't had a hardcore military first-person shooter, AAA, in a very long time. So when Call of Duty eventually goes to Switch, it's going to do mad sales because those people, if you're a hardcore Nintendo fan and you just want to play a military shooter, you haven't really had many. So, like, I think it's completely fine. I think, these platforms opening themselves up and putting even older titles on. Now, there's an argument for newer titles, day one. I can get behind that. But when it comes to, like, porting old games, why not? Like, if anyone, like, when that Gears of War Reloaded announcement happened, right? It is literally Ultimate Edition, just 4K 60. If anyone was sitting in their house looking at their phone, shaking, saying, I can't believe they're bringing Gears to other platforms. Why? You've already played it. In fact, you played it in 2006. Right? You're not missing out on anything. You haven't lost anything, I think it would be really cool to bring these games to other platforms. Like, I think, Sony, if Sony's willing to put Helldivers 2 on an alternate platform, an other console, that means they are really looking at this, because people can say, oh, well, it's a live service game. Technically, that doesn't even make sense, because if you're going with the whole it's a live service game, it would have made more sense to launch it on Xbox the same day as PlayStation.
Yep.
Because when you market all of your platforms together, everyone knows what all these platforms are on. Like when Sony's released a version on PC, right, a year after launch, and people look at the sales on Steam, right, it's because nobody knows about it, right? One of my best friends who games on PC, I've had to tell him before that certain games were on PC, right? I had to tell him that God of War was on PC. He had no bloody idea. I had to tell him, right? So I think, it's possible. Now more than ever, it's possible. And if you go back several years ago, we were told that PlayStation games will never go to PC. We were told that they will only go to PC 3 years after launch, then 2 years, then 1 year, then 6 months, then only live service games. Then Lego Horizon Adventures goes to Switch and PC the same day. Nobody bats an eye. It's not a live service. And now Helldivers 2 is coming to Xbox, and we're just meant to go with the whole, it's a live service game thing. I don't believe it. We'll obviously we'll have to wait and see if other games will come. But let's say if Spider-Man gets announced tomorrow to come to Xbox in like a couple of months, PlayStation are going to make so much money off that.
No, dude, they're gonna,
so much money. And that like Obi was saying, like with an Xbox controller, chef's kiss.
Yes.
So I think, is now more than ever, it's extremely possible, and it's an exciting time for gamers.
Indeed, it is. You know what, Umbra? I'm all about bringing evidence-based conversation to my shows, and with evidence-based conversation, well, you got to bring numbers, right? So while Jamie was going, doing his spiel, I said, you know what? Let me just take a look. So if Spider-Man 2 cost $315 million to make, right? And that game was outsold by Helldivers 2, well, the numbers really come into play here. Now, I was able to find that as of today, Helldivers 2 has sold over 14 million copies, and that's phenomenal. Right? 14 million copies is a lot of copies, mostly on Steam. I couldn't get the specifics on PlayStation 5. Someone did tell me behind the scenes that it's around 2 million, but I don't have that confirmed. So of potentially 2 of the 14 million copies sold came the way of PlayStation 5, right? This leads into the Jim Ryan comment that, well, PlayStation gamers alone aren't enough, right? And again, take that with a grain of salt. So I went and looked and see how much it cost Arrowhead Studios, who made Helldivers 2. How much did it cost them? Well, according to the stats I have in front of me, it cost around $100 million to make that game. That $100 million game outsold Spider-Man 2, which cost $315 million to make. So if Sony was keen to take the 14 million seller, which sold better than Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 2 cost $315 million to make, and Helldivers 2 cost $100 million to make, and they put that onto Xbox, what makes you think that they're not going to try and recoup some of the money from Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales, which is literally, like Jamie said, sitting on a digital server somewhere doing absolutely nothing? They specifically bought Nixxes for porting things, and they obviously were a big part of porting Helldivers 2. I believe Spider-Man 1 or Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales, and even at some point, Spider-Man 2 are going to be next, because Sony is going to want to recoup some of the money. Did they make back their money on the if Spider-Man 2 sold less than Helldivers 2, do you think they made back their $315 million, not counting advertising it? I don't think so. And at Marvel taking 35% a clip for every game that's sold, these games are coming over. How soon that is, I don't know. But again, if people think that this is the end, do I honestly believe that God of War is next? I do not. But do I see something like Ratchet and Clank possibly coming over? I do. Do I see something like a Last of Us remake? Could you imagine how the internet would just literally crack in half, like hell came to earth, if the Last of Us 1 remake launched on Xbox? Let's get your thoughts and your takes on some of the numbers, and more importantly, whether or not this is the foot in the door for Sony going full third party.
There's something to be said about, for one, Helldivers. Let me just say, a good game. Arrowhead, they did
Phenomenal
a great
game,
job.
hard as hell, but an excellent game.
It's one of those games where if you play together as a team,
when you win, you feel like you won something.
You do. You feel like it literally feels like you're playing the Starship Troopers to me.
Yes.
And it's just fun to just get in there and kind of act a fool. That said, I've played with Risket, and he team kills sometimes, and oops, I shot that blue number. I shot Umbra, or dropped the munition call on our head.
I dropped the pot on myself once before.
That was hilarious. But that makes for so many great moments, though. So they got the formula down, man. So I think I hope at least that a lot of people who have not tried it on the Xbox side, I hope you guys do try it out. Which leads me to my next point which is the likelihood of other games coming over. I see the possibility there. We see what Totoki has said. We know they want to make more money with these things. Something like Spider-Man coming over makes so much more sense than anything else because of, like you said, what Marvel is going to pull from them, right? We've already seen how I don't want to say restrictive. What's the word? We've already seen how demanding they are with their return off the leaks from Insomniac with Wolverine, right? So we know that it's like they want their money, and they absolutely, have the strength of the IP to demand that, right? So that's what Wolverine. Spider-Man is the most profitable superhero in the world right now, right? Probably, not even probably, he's the highest merchandise sales and all that. Unless that's changed, he used to be number one from what I remember. Worldwide known. They can absolutely demand more. And if any game could, get that argument for it being everywhere so Sony can profit more, to also pay Marvel to continue having that as an IP, it will be Spider-Man. It's been out long enough, both that and Miles, the swagger of a black teen Morales game. So yeah, it makes perfect sense for that to eventually be one of the games to happen. Live service, obviously, if we're just keeping it real, it makes the most sense, and that's why we're seeing something like Helldivers coming over, because it is live service. If it had lived Concord, as much as an undesirable as it may have been to most people, probably would have been one of the games to come over too, right? So yeah, this makes a ton of sense for that reason. What I will say is this: it is contingent upon a few things. First off, I can see them porting older games too, right? The Last of Us, the what's that zombie one?
Days Gone would be a great pick, dude. That would sell really well on Xbox, brother. That would sell gangbusters.
Yeah. That maybe Returnal, like all those types of things I can see happening if provided people buy things like this. So if we, for instance, jump, and I'm not saying this is like, hey guys, go out and get this so we can show them, but if you want to incentivize that, listen, this is going to sound like double speak. It's also probably going to come off as fanboyish, but I'm just going to keep it real. We can do that and kind of force Sony's hand to say, hey, we got some money over here to be made. Let's get some games over here, right?
Yep.
But then I keep going back to this. Next year, or not next year, when the next gen, should I say, you're going to have them anyway.
Yeah, again, that's I actually said that on a post as well. It says, whether they bring them over officially or they get them through the next Xbox, Xbox players are going to be playing PlayStation games. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's happening one way or another. Now, it might not be day and date necessarily because of Steam. Sometimes, Sony won't drop the games day and date, but a little patience will go a long way for you. So, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. You know what I mean? It's going to happen one way or another. That's the way I look at it. If you're invested into the Xbox ecosystem, I think you're gonna enjoy it anyway. And it goes back to what you were talking about earlier with the games dropping to Steam. However many they may be, they're a lot. Think about all those games you all will get next gen. And I say you all because I'm already on PC. I don't want to act like I'm still on Xbox like you all. I'm not. So I'm just gonna keep it real. I'm just gonna keep it real, But I got love for Xbox. I'm not saying it like I don't want what they got. I'm very excited for next gen for everybody here, because if you're strictly to that and you say, hey, I just want to stick to console gaming, well, you're about to be rewarded with next gen, in my opinion, and you'll get everything, including some Sony games. So that's the thing. Like, even if they decide, hey, we're not going to put that over there, you're going to get it anyway. Just might be a bit of a time, right? Might be, unless it's live service, then you're going to get it day and date, right? Because they're not going to hold off on that on Steam. They're going to put it out there day and date. So there is that. But yeah, I think, because I also look at it like, what could profit Sony instead of having it just that Steam be that middleman? Well, to sell it themselves on Xbox, right? That's the quick and easy way around it. Or have their own storefront that they put out on PC. That's one way around it, I suppose, even though still it'll likely be accessible. But I'm just saying, like, there is that. So that being said, listen, I don't know how fast it would be for first party titles, but if I had to pick one, I think you're right that Spider-Man would be that one. Any licensed type one, just because of how much it's taken this, Spider-Man, Wolverine, those types right there. I could see those, coming over sooner than later, I would say. And then maybe they might decide, hey, let's get some of these older titles over there. I'll say this too. I saw the reaction from a lot of the Sony guys just from Helldivers. And I'm like, if you're acting like that over Helldivers, I would hate to see what happens if they brought over, one of their mainstay.
Dude, the internet would crack in half, brother. It would be something.
That would be amazing.
I saw some people say, this is my last PlayStation over Helldivers.
I saw the video. I saw what you're talking about. Yeah.
Now imagine like God of War coming over. Oh, can you imagine? It'll be a war or something. Anyway,
take the day off.
So I say all that to say, listen, I don't act like I'm not going to enjoy it either. I would love to see it too. I'll be honest with you, brother. I would love to see it. Anyway, that said, I would just say this. I'll end it on a positive note. Helldivers 2 is excellent, you all. So when it comes over, I'm not telling you what to do, but it is a great game. You all will enjoy it. So, and it's cheap comparatively, right? It's what, $50 or whatever, $40?
I think it was $39.99 for the regular, $40 for the regular edition, $60 for the deluxe edition.
Yeah, get you a $40 game and enjoy that. Yeah,
well worth every penny. Well worth every single penny.
100%. I'm not even we're not just saying that. Like, it's legitimately a great game. Yeah. And Arrowhead, by the way, to their credit, are great devs. They've never been about the console war nonsense. Whenever you see these guys like, oh, let's team kill Xbox guys, they came out against that. They've always been positive of pointing out the homage to Halo in there, because they very clearly, if you play the game, you'll see they have clear references to Halo in it. Like, it's kind of funny. Actually, they have a clear love for Halo. So these guys are legitimate in my eyes. I would love to reward them. So I would, and you all too, because it's a great game. So give it a chance. I think you all will enjoy it.
I hope that they at some point have hell jumpers in the game, even Spartan outfits.
I really hope that happens.
I'm going to buy it.
I promise I will buy it. If they drop any ODST crossover, whatever,
with the hammer.
Oh, automatic, guaranteed.
Well,
and
listen,
it's perfect for it. Actually, it's literally perfect for it.
It literally is. Again, if they like money, and I'm sure that they do, they are probably already designing ODST drops, hell jumpers skins where we Xbox players will be able to buy it. Whether it be Spartan armor, whether it be ODST, I don't care. Whatever it is, if it's Halo related, you got my money. You're gonna get my money.
It's guaranteed. Guaranteed you got my money. And the thing is that like I was like, oh, I'll just play it on PC because I got it on PlayStation. I was gifted it on Steam, so I have it in two places. But if they put that in as like exclusive to Xbox, to get the Spartan stuff or whatever, then I'll be playing on Xbox. I have no problem. I have no problem playing on Xbox. I still got my Series X. You best believe I'll turn that joint on to play that with the Halo specific, not information.
That would be so cool. Like I say again, it just prints money, so why wouldn't they do it? So it makes sense. But listen, real quick, just for for additional context, if you're wondering about prices of games, Spider-Man 3 for the PlayStation 5 is slated, according to this article and the leak from last year. It was actually from 2 years ago. The Insomniac leak happened December 19th, 2023, if you're wondering specifically the date. Spider-Man, that's where we found out that Spider-Man 2 had a budget of a development budget of $315 million. Well, Spider-Man 3, according to the leak, which I have in front of me, is estimated, again, this was 2023 dollars, at $385 million for the next game, for Spider-Man 3, almost $400 million. You don't think they're going to want to... And you got to remember, they got to give 35% of that to Marvel, to Disney. So they're going to have to figure it out. Are they going to have a $400 million budget for the next Spider-Man if Spider-Man 2 didn't sell as good as 1 and was outsold by Helldivers 2? I don't think so, folks. I just don't think so. We'll see what happens, but it's going to be very interesting to see where the buck stops for Sony going third party. I don't think it's full slate immediately, but I think what really honestly just jumps off the page and makes too much sense is Spider-Man, because they don't own Spider-Man's license. What they own is the movie rights, but everything else that Spider-Man makes, the Underoos and the toys and the games, that's all Disney Marvel. So they're going to want to make money on this as they're a corporation. This is what they do. But let me just catch up on Super Chats. We'll get everyone out of here. We have Elijah Vasquez drops a very generous $2 Super Chat. So Elijah, thank you so much for joining as always. He says, so far over 5 Switches have been bricked and they weren't hacked. Yeah, I mean, that's not good. That's a really bad look for Nintendo. And again, they're going to have to answer for that. They're going to have to. You just can't brick it, Will. If the people are using ROMs and stuff, I guess, but I don't know, man. Something's not right about that.
You got to point out a few things with Nintendo. This been kind of messed up this gen for them so far with the screen issues they have been having, and this right here, as well as the $80 tag of price for they introduced. There's been a few missteps, I would say, from them.
Yeah, and then they're certainly not going to make as much money as sell as many consoles as they did the original for sure. But Freddie Fox in the chat drops a very generous $2 Super Chat. Freddie goes on to say, I want to hear what Umbra Paris has to say on topic. I'm sorry, it's a little bit older, but there you go.
Yeah, well, Freddie, we have to make sure to be adults here on this subject. And I'm hopeful that Helldivers, it performs well and more games come over. Yeah.
He's turning in his chair right now. Poor Paris. That was you do sound like him. That's crazy.
All love.
You do a good voiceover, I will say.
Invite me to the show,
you're definitely not getting on his show for sure. The door has been closed. The back door has been closed. Everything's closed. The security guard says anyone that says his name is Umbra, he's out. Oh my goodness. Torino Johnson drops a very generous $5 Super Chat. He goes on to say, boom and panel. I still rent new release games that aren't on Game Pass in Redbox rental machines. Are they angry at Redbox also? Probably not. But that's actually, I mean, that's smart. If you can't buy the games, then you rent them. If you can't rent them from there, there's GameFly still exists. You can get them from there. We also have wow, this is really incredible. Bounty in the chat drops 10 double barrel gaming memberships. Brother, that is crazy generous of you, bro. Thank you so much, man. That is awesome. You've been here since the beginning, and we definitely appreciate that kind of generosity. Thank you so much. Crazy G14, who's been a channel member for 23 months. He goes on to say, hey, Boom, Jamie, and Umbra, great show. I always had the incline that PlayStation or PS games would end up on Xbox, as Sony would rather get the money, not to Steam. I mean, they're going to take money from whoever wants to give it to them. If it's on Steam, they'll take it. If it's on Xbox, I mean, look, Xbox did really, really again, just look at MLB. There were a couple of occasions, and I think it was either the first year and the second year, that more people on Xbox bought MLB The Show on Xbox, even though it was in Game Pass, than on PlayStation. That's saying something, because it's a quality product. MLB The Show is excellent.
You want to talk about sustainability though, Boom? Like, going to that just quickly, like, we talk about sustainability of Game Pass and everything. If you're talking about the prices you just laid out for like Spider-Man, nearly $400 million.
Yep.
Well, they're gonna have to get that money back somehow, right? So what better way? And Totoki and them, they already realize it. That's why they're saying what they're saying. They're trying to soften the blow for their gamers to understand. Hey, we might have to take some, go a little third party, they've already been doing it, but they might have to do that. So I think that's a great point. By the way, thank you for shouting out the show and telling us great show today. Who's that? Who said that?
Let me see. Let me go back to it. That was Crazy G14.
Thank you, Crazy G. But yeah, I think that kind of opens the door more for that too. Just to that point that you're making there, like the sustainability. If you're spending that much, it would make more sense if you're putting in your games everywhere to get all that money back.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you gotta make the money back. These are investments that you're making, and when you're again, if Sony owns the IP like God of War, Uncharted, The Last of Us, right? They own that IP. They're not paying for use of the IP. They own it, right? It's a part of their first party, titles. But when you have a game like Spider-Man, where you are required by a contract to pay 35% of every game sold, you have to. They're a partner. You have to pay your partner. That's just the way it works. So it makes sense for Spider-Man. But again, we will see. But ladies and gentlemen, this has been a great show. 2 outstanding topics with masterful opinions from both the chat and, of course, the panel members here. We'll get to the outros. Jamie, you have a show happening later today, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, with, of course, yourself and Logan Meyer on something called the All Things Xbox Podcast. Again, a great show where it's not anti-whatever. It's literally, let's talk about games, have fun doing it. We want to sell your brand, brother. Where can people subscribe to the Jamie Moran YouTube channel, which is, of course, known as The Elusive Gamer? But more importantly, tune in, subscribe, and follow you on social media.
Yeah, thanks, Boom. It's always a pleasure. So, yeah, my YouTube channel is The Elusive Gamer. I exclusively cover Xbox. There's no fanboy stuff. There's no clickbait, any of that stuff whatsoever. So I hope people enjoy that. All Things Xbox podcast is tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go over the Helldivers 2 stuff, some Final Fantasy stuff, and even maybe more Final Fantasy games which might be coming to Xbox later this year. Going to be a good time over there. Again, no fanboy stuff. And yeah, at 6 p.m. Eastern on the Elusive Gamer YouTube channel. And I also do Twitter, where it's exclusively gaming and jokes.
Well, thank you so much for being here, brother. Super appreciate it. And Infinite Umbra, or the Sustainable Umbra, I might say. Let's sell the brand. You, of course, and Daniel J. McGee do a great show every Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, on a podcast called The Fix. Where can people check that out? Because not only do you talk about gaming, you talk about pop culture. That includes film, TV, and wrestling, as we know. Talk about it, brother. Where could people subscribe? And more importantly, follow you guys on social media.
Yes, sir. Boom. Thanks you and Jamie for excellent commentary and show. Always doing your things. Thank you, chat, for holding us down and keeping it lively as you all always do. Of course, Infinite Umber or Umber Infinite. You'll find me either way on social media, be that Blue Sky or Twitter. And Thursdays at 8:00. I put the link into the chat. If you all have not subscribed to us, please do so. Myself and Danny, we have a great show. You already hear some of my banter here. Me and him have gotten really strong with that. I've made sure to kind of keep it a solo dolo thing between us where we can build up that perfect chemistry of interaction and interactivity that you can only get over time with somebody that you continuously speak with, and we have that rapport, honestly. So come by and check us out. I think you all have a good time. Those who come regularly to check us out, they do, and we always appreciate you guys coming by. That's Thursdays at 8:00 Eastern for us, and we will be returning this week for sure. We obviously holidays and everything like that going on, so we didn't have a show this past week, and week before that other things came up as well. So but definitely returning this week, even if I have to do it myself, and I'll get a panel of other like podcasters that jump in. I definitely will go live this week for sure. Yeah, man, and that's really it for me. Go and play some games and enjoy some games, y'all. Like,
yes,
we got to make sure that we keep Game Pass sustainable.
Indeed, sir. That's right. Make sure, which by the way, I just re-upped, because every time I go down 3 months, I re-up. I find it on sale. I didn't get too much of a sale. I think I paid, what was it, like $50? It was like $10 off of the because it's hard to find those $34 for 3 months. Yeah. But I am paid up until July 5th of 2028. So
I'm up to, I actually need to re-up soon. I'm up to 2026 September. So I have to, I'm going to get another year stacked to it, and probably add.
Check Aniba, check
CD Keys, all these other spots.
CD Keys doesn't really get them anymore. Aniba has had them. I've seen it as low on Aniba as 46, which isn't bad. It's not great, but it's still, you're still saving money. So yeah. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Again, over 1,100 people watching live. That is a lot of humans checking out the show. Of course, we keep asking, and we just want to keep growing the channel organically in the old-fashioned mom and pop way of doing things. If you enjoyed the show, please consider hitting the like button before you get out of here. If you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. A big thank you to all of the super chats, channel member chats, and gifted subs. Mrs. Boom and I are incredibly grateful for the support. And of course, I'm going to close out the show with something that's incredibly important to me, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And it would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you, you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of the Xbox Factor Podcast.